A night of rebellion, Natalie Brooks stood at the edge of the rooftop bar, her fingers wrapped tightly around a champagne glass as the city lights of Los Angeles sparkled below like scattered diamonds. At 24, she had lived her entire life behind invisible bars made of expectations, family obligations, and carefully scheduled appearances. Tomorrow, those bars would become permanent. Tomorrow, she would marry Preston Aldridge, a man she barely knew, in a ceremony designed to merge two powerful business empires, but tonight was hers. The navy blue dress she wore hugged her curves in a way that would have scandalized her controlling father. Her normally restrained blonde hair fell in loose waves past her shoulders, and for the first time in months, she had left her phone behind. No tracking, no checking in, no reminders of the prison her life had become. The club pulsed with energy around her. Beautiful people moved through the space like colorful fish in an expensive aquarium, their laughter mixing with the rhythmic beat of music that seemed to match her accelerating heartbeat. Natalie had never been to a place like this before. Her social calendar was usually filled with charity galas, business dinners, and country club events where everyone smiled with their mouths but watched each other with calculating eyes. The stranger, who changed everything, felt him before she saw him. It was like a shift in the atmosphere, a pull that made her turn her head toward the entrance. The man who walked in commanded attention without seeming to try. He stood at least 6'2", with dark hair that looked like he had run his fingers through it repeatedly, and a jaw that could have been carved from stone. He wore a black suit that fit him perfectly, but it was his eyes that captured her completely, even from across the crowded space. She could see they were an unusual shade of gray, like storm clouds before rain. When those eyes found hers, the world seemed to pause. Everything else faded into background noise. The music, the people, the city below, all of it disappeared until there was only him. And the intensity of his gaze, Natalie watched as he moved through the crowd. People naturally made way for him, sensing something powerful in his presence. Her heart hammered against her ribs as he came closer, each step deliberate and confident. When he finally stood before her, she could smell his cologne. Something woody and masculine that made her dizzy. "You look like someone trying to outrun something," he said, his voice deep and slightly rough around the edges. Natalie blinked, surprised by his directness. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who knows what that looks like," extended his hand. "I'm Dominic Hayes." "Natalie," she replied, placing her hand in his. The moment their skin touched, electricity shot up her arm. His hand was warm, strong, and the way his fingers closed around hers felt both protective and dangerous. "Just Natalie?" he asked, a small smile playing at the corner of his mouth. "Tonight, yes. Just Natalie." Falling into the forbidden, they talked for hours. Dominic ordered them both drinks. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And they moved to a quieter corner of the rooftop where the music was softer and the stars felt closer. Natalie found herself sharing things she had never told anyone. She spoke about feeling like a bird in a gilded cage, about dreams she had abandoned because they did not fit the image her family needed her to project, about the suffocating weight of expectations. Dominic listened with an intensity that made her feel truly heard for the first time in her life. His eyes never left her face, and when she paused, uncertain if she had revealed too much, he would ask another question that showed he was genuinely interested in her thoughts, her feelings, her true self. "What about you?" she asked, turning the conversation toward him. "What are you running from?" Something dark flickered across his face. "Ghosts," he said simply. "The kind that do not let you forget who you were or what was taken from you." There was pain in his voice, old and deep, and Natalie felt an overwhelming urge to comfort him. Without thinking, she reached out and touched his hand. He looked down at where her fingers rested on his, and when he looked back up, the heat in his gaze made her breath catch. "Natalie," he said her name like a prayer and a warning all at once. "I should tell you something." "Do not," she interrupted. "Whatever it is, I do not want to know. Not tonight. Tonight I just want to be a woman who met an interesting man at a bar. Tomorrow I can go back to being whoever I am supposed to be. But please, just let me have tonight." A decision that changes everything. Dominic studied her face, and she could see the war happening behind his eyes. Then, slowly, he stood and offered her his hand. Dance with me. On the dance floor, pressed against his solid chest, with his arms wrapped around her, Natalie felt safe and alive in equal measure. The music washed over them, but they barely moved, just swayed together like they had all the time in the world. "Come home with me," Dominic whispered against her ear, his breath warm on her skin. Every rational part of Natalie's brain screamed that this was reckless, dangerous, completely unlike her. But the wild, desperate part of her that had been locked away for so long whispered something different. This was her last chance, her last night of freedom, her last opportunity to choose something for herself. "Yes," she breathed. His apartment was sleek and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the glittering city below, but Natalie barely noticed the view. The moment the door closed behind them, Dominic turned to her with a look that made her knees weak. "Are you sure?" he asked, giving her one last chance to change her mind. Instead of answering with words, Natalie stepped forward and kissed him. The morning after, the first thing Natalie became aware of was warmth. The second was the unfamiliar weight of an arm draped across her waist. Her eyes flew open, taking in the unfamiliar room flooded with morning sunlight. Memories of the night before came rushing back, making her cheeks flush with heat. She turned her head slowly on the pillow and found Dominic already awake, watching her with an expression she could not quite read. In the morning light, she could see details she had missed the night before. A small scar above his left eyebrow, flecks of blue in his gray eyes, the way his dark hair fell across his forehead. "Good morning," he said softly. "Good morning." Her voice came out hoarse, and she cleared her throat. "I should go. I have somewhere I need to be." Something flickered across his face. "Your wedding." Natalie froze. "How did you know about that?" Dominic sat up, and she pulled the sheet up to cover herself, suddenly feeling exposed in more ways than physical. "Natalie, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you last night." The way he said it made fear curl in her stomach. "What is it?" Before he could answer, her phone, which she had forgotten in her purse by the door, started ringing. The sound was shrill and insistent, cutting through the morning quiet like an alarm. "I need to answer that," she said, scrambling out of bed and wrapping herself in the sheet. She dug through her purse with shaking hands until she found the phone. The screen showed her father's name, and her blood ran cold. "Where are you?" Her father's voice was ice. "Your wedding is in 3 hours, and you are not in your room." "I went for a walk. I could not sleep. Get back here now. The car will be waiting." The line went dead. Natalie stood there, phone in hand, feeling the weight of reality crashing back down on her shoulders. When she turned back to Dominic, he was standing now, pulling on his pants, his expression unreadable. "I have to go," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Natalie, wait. You need to know something about your father. About why I was at that club last night." I cannot. I do not have time." She was already grabbing her dress, pulling it on with fumbling fingers. "Last night was perfect. Can we please just leave it at that?" "It was not chance that we met," he said, and something in his voice made her stop. "I was there because I knew you would be." She turned to look at him, her dress half-zipped. "What are you talking about?" "Your father, Natalie. He is not who you think he is. And neither am I." But Natalie could not hear this, could not process it. If she started pulling at that thread, her entire world would unravel, and she did not have time for that. Not with 3 hours until her wedding. Not with her father waiting. "I am sorry," she said, finishing with her dress and grabbing her shoes. "Whatever you think you know, whatever this was, it cannot matter. I have responsibilities. I have obligations." "You have choices," Dominic said, his voice intense. "You always have choices." But as Natalie rushed out of his apartment and into the waiting elevator, she wondered if that was really true, or if her choices had been made for her long before she was born, written into contracts and business deals that valued her as a commodity rather than a person. As the elevator descended, taking her back down to the life she had tried to escape for one perfect night. Natalie did not know that this was not the end of her encounter with Dominic Hayes. It was only the beginning of something far more complicated and dangerous than she could have ever imagined. The wedding that never was. Natalie sat in front of the vanity mirror in her childhood bedroom, staring at her reflection without really seeing it. The makeup artist had just finished creating what she called a bridal glow. But all Natalie saw was a stranger wearing a mask. Her wedding dress hung on the back of the closet door, a stunning creation of silk and lace that cost more than most people earned in a year. It was beautiful. It was perfect. It was a prison made of white fabric. Her mind kept drifting back to Dominic, to the way he had looked at her, to the warmth of his arms, to those final cryptic words about her father. What had he meant? What did he know? A sharp knock on the door jolted her from her thoughts. "Come in," she called, expecting her mother, or perhaps the wedding planner with another last-minute detail to confirm. Instead, 3 men in dark suits entered her room with military precision. Natalie recognized none of them, and the way they moved made alarm bells ring in her head. "These were not wedding staff," Miss Brooks, the tallest one, said, his voice flat and professional. "You need to come with us." "Excuse me?" Natalie stood, her heart beginning to race. "Who are you? How did you get in here?" "Your father sent us. There has been a change of plans. My father would never send strangers to my room on my wedding day. Get out before I call security." But when she reached for her phone, one of the men was faster. He plucked it from her hand with casual ease. "Miss Brooks, we can do this the easy way or the difficult way. The choice is yours." Fear flooded through Natalie's veins, cold and sharp. "What is happening? Where's my father?" "Your father is handling business matters. You are coming with us now." The mansion of secrets. The drive seemed to last forever. Natalie sat in the back of a black SUV with tinted windows, her hands trembling in her lap, her mind racing through possibilities. Kidnapping. But why would kidnappers mention her father? Business rival? A ransom situation? Nothing made sense. They left the city behind, driving through increasingly rural areas until they turned onto a long private road lined with ancient oak trees. At the end of the road stood a mansion that took Natalie's breath away. It was modern yet elegant, all clean lines and enormous windows that reflected the afternoon sun. When the car stopped, the men helped her out with surprising gentleness. She was escorted up marble steps to massive front doors that opened before they reached them. And there, standing in the foyer like he owned the world, was Dominic Hayes. Natalie's world tilted sideways. "No," she whispered, the word barely audible. "No, this cannot be happening." Dominic's expression was carefully controlled, but she could see something flickering in those gray eyes. Regret? Guilt? "Welcome to your new home, Miss Brooks." The formal way he said her name, so different from the warmth of last night, felt like a slap. "What is this? What have you done?" "I've done what needed to be done." His voice was cold, empty of the emotion she had heard in it just hours ago. "You knew." The realization hit her like a physical blow last night. "Oh, you knew who I was." "You planned this?" "Not exactly." For a moment, something genuine crossed his face. Last night was not supposed to happen the way it did. Natalie felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "So, what was I? Some kind of test. A way to amuse yourself before you kidnapped me." "You are leveraged," he said, and the bluntness of it made her flinch. "You are the one thing your father values more than money." Unveiled truths. Dominic led her through the mansion to a library that was both beautiful and intimidating. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined the walls, filled with leather-bound volumes that looked like they had been there for generations. But it was the desk in the center of the room that drew her attention. On it lay stacks of documents, photographs, and what looked like financial records. "Sit down," Dominic said, gesturing to a leather chair. "I prefer to stand. Suit yourself." He picked up one of the folders and held it out to her. "Before you judge me too harshly, you should know who your father really is." Natalie's hand shook as she took the folder. Inside were documents that made her stomach turn. Financial records, showing systematic destruction of competing businesses. Emails discussing blackmail Photographs of her father meeting with men who looked more like criminals than businessmen. And then, a name that made everything click into place. Hayes Industries. My father, Dominic said, his voice tight with controlled emotion, built a company from nothing. He employed hundreds of people, was honest, hardworking, and he believed in playing by the rules. Your father decided that was a weakness to exploit. Natalie sank into the chair, her legs no longer able to support her as she read through page after page of damning evidence. This cannot be real. My father is a respected businessman, is on charity boards. He donates millions to good causes. Blood money, Dominic said harshly, trying to buy redemption for sins he will never acknowledge. Keep reading. She did, and each page made her feel sicker. Her father had not just competed with Hayes Industries. He had systematically destroyed it through lies, manipulation, and threats. He had bribed officials to revoke licenses. He had spread false rumors about financial instability. He had threatened the families of key employees until they resigned. And when Dominic's father tried to fight back legally, her father had judges and lawyers in his pocket to ensure the case went nowhere. They died because of him, Dominic said quietly. My parents. They were driving to the airport, trying to escape with what little dignity they had left. The stress, the shame, the loss of everything they had built, it was too much. My father had a heart attack while driving. It crashed. Natalie looked up at him, seeing the grief that he usually kept hidden behind that controlled exterior. I am so sorry, I did not know. I swear I did not know any of this. I know you did not. He moved to the window, staring out at the manicured gardens. I spent months researching you, Natalie. I know you have been kept in a bubble your whole life. Your father made sure you saw only what he wanted you to see. You are as much his victim as anyone. Then why am I here? If you know I am innocent, why kidnap me? Dominic turned back to her, and the look in his eyes made her shiver, because you are the only thing he loves more than power. Having you here gives me leverage to make him confess his crimes publicly and return what he stole from every family he destroyed. A father's betrayal, you need to understand something else, Dominic said, picking up his phone. Your father knows where you are. I contacted him this morning after you left. Then he will come for me. He will pay whatever ransom you want, will he? Dominic pressed a button on his phone, and suddenly the room filled with the sound of a recorded conversation. Natalie recognized her father's voice immediately. Where is my daughter? Her father demanded. Safe, for now. That was Dominic's voice, cold and businesslike. What do you want? I want you to confess your crimes, publicly. I want you to return the money you stole through blackmail and fraud. And I want you to face justice for what you did to my family. There was a long pause, then her father laughed. Actually laughed. You think I built an empire by caring about justice? Or more naive than your father was? What you did to Hayes Industries? I admit nothing. And as for my daughter, she has become more trouble than she is worth. An arranged marriage was supposed to tie up loose ends, but clearly that plan has failed. If you want to keep her, keep her. She is your problem now. Natalie felt like she had been punched in the stomach. The room spun around her and she gripped the arms of the chair to keep from falling. No, that is not real. You doctored that recording. Dominic's expression softened slightly. I wish I had, but there is more. You played another recording, this one even worse. Her father discussing with someone how Natalie had become a liability. How her kidnapping might actually solve several problems at once. How he could play the grieving father while eliminating the daughter who had become too independent to questioning. He has put a price on your head, Natalie, Dominic said gently. If you leave this house, if you try to go back to him, you will not survive the week. The only reason you are alive right now is because you are here, under my protection. Conflicted hearts the days that followed blurred together. Natalie spent hours in the library, reading through all the evidence of her father's crimes, trying to reconcile the man she thought she knew with the monster revealed in these documents. Alina, the kind housekeeper, brought her meals and tried to offer comfort, but Natalie barely ate. Dominic kept his distance, as if he did not trust himself to be near her. When they did encounter each other in the halls or the library, the tension between them was thick enough to cut. The memory of their night together hung in the air like a ghost, beautiful and painful. One evening, unable to sleep, Natalie found herself wandering the mansion. She ended up in the music room, where a grand piano sat gleaming in the moonlight. She had not played since childhood, but her fingers found the keys anyway, picking out a melancholy melody that matched her mood. "My mother used to play." Dominic's voice came from the doorway, making her jump. "I did not mean to intrude. You did not play. Please." Natalie continued, and after a moment, Dominic entered the room and sat in a chair nearby, listening. When she finished, silence stretched between them. "I understand now," she said finally. "Why you hate him? Why you need revenge? If someone had done to my parents what he did to yours, I would want justice too." "But," Dominic prompted, hearing the unspoken word, "but I am not him. And what we had that night, before you knew who I was, that was real." "Was it not?" Dominic closed his eyes as if in pain. "It was the most real thing I have felt in 12 years. And why are you pushing me away?" "Because loving you would betray everything I have worked for, everything I promised my parents." Natalie stood and walked to him, her heart pounding. "Or maybe loving me would honor them by choosing life over death, future over past, forgiveness over revenge. I do not know if I can do that." "Then let me teach you." She reached out and touched his face, feeling the tension in his jaw. "Let me show you that there is another way." Dominic caught her hand, holding it against his cheek. "Natalie, if I let myself love you, I do not know if I can let you go when this is over. Then do not let me go. Choose me. Choose us. Choose a different ending than the one you have been planning." For a long moment, they stood frozen in that tableau, the moonlight painting them in silver. Two people caught between past pain and possible future happiness. Then Dominic pulled her into his arms and kissed her with a desperation that spoke of years of loneliness and pain finally finding comfort. The Great escaped 2 weeks into her captivity. Natalie had memorized the routines of Dominic's security team. She knew when the guards changed shifts, which cameras had blind spots, and that the east garden wall was slightly lower than the others. She did not want to leave Dominic, but she needed to prove to herself that she could, that she had choices, even in this impossible situation. She made her move on a Tuesday afternoon when most of the staff were busy preparing for a delivery. Dressed in dark clothes borrowed from Elena's laundry room, slipped through the gardens and scaled the wall, dropping into the woods beyond. Freedom felt exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. The nearest town was 5 miles away, according to the maps she had studied. Natalie had always been athletic, but hiking in borrowed shoes through unfamiliar terrain was harder than expected. By the time she reached the small town, her feet were blistered, and her clothes were torn from branches. The diner on Main Street looked like something from a postcard. All chrome and red vinyl. Natalie slipped inside, grateful for the air conditioning and the chance to sit down. An older waitress with kind eyes approached her table. "Rough day, honey?" the woman asked, taking in Natalie's disheveled appearance. "You could say that." "Could I use your phone?" "Mine died, and I need to call someone." "Sure thing. Phone is by the bathrooms in back." But when Natalie picked up the phone, she realized she had no one to call. Her father wanted her dead. Her former friends were all part of the social circle controlled by her family. She had spent her entire life in a bubble, and now that it had popped, she had nowhere to go. She was still standing there, phone in hand. When she heard the diner door open and felt that familiar electric awareness that told her Dominic had arrived, she turned to see him standing just inside the entrance, his expression a mixture of relief and anger. "Going somewhere?" he asked, his voice deceptively calm. Dangerous revelations, the ride back to the mansion was silent and tense. Natalie sat as far from Dominic as the car would allow, arms crossed, staring out the window. When they arrived, he dismissed the driver and security team before turning to her. "We need to talk now." He led her to his private office, a room she had not been in before. It was masculine and sophisticated, with dark wood furniture and walls lined with books and art. But what caught her attention was the wall of monitors showing security feeds from around the property. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" Dominic demanded, his carefully controlled demeanor finally cracking. "Do you understand the danger you put yourself in?" "I was proving a point." "I am not your prisoner. You are under my protection, and there is a difference. Your father has hired 3 different groups to find you, Natalie. Professional killers who would not hesitate to put a bullet in your head and collect their payment. You're exaggerating to keep me. Scared, Dominic pulled up a file on his computer and turned the screen toward her. Am I? These are the men looking for you. Read their records. Look at what they have done to other targets. Natalie forced herself to look, and what she saw made her blood run cold. These were not businessmen or private investigators. They were mercenaries with extensive records of violence. And according to the intelligence Dominic had gathered, they were getting close. Why would my father do this? She whispered. I am his daughter, his only child. It's because you know too much now. Because you represent a weakness. Because men like your father see people as assets or liabilities, and you have become the latter. Dominic's voice softened. I know this is hard to accept, but your father stopped seeing you as his daughter the moment you became inconvenient to his plans. Natalie sank into a chair, the full weight of her situation finally hitting her. So I truly am trapped. If I stay here, I am your captive. If I leave, I am dead. Those are my only choices. No. Dominic knelt in front of her chair, taking her hands in his. There is a third choice. We take down your father together. We expose his crimes, freeze his assets, and eliminate his power. Once he can no longer pay these men, once he is behind bars, you will be safe. And what happens to us? Natalie asked, looking into his gray eyes and seeing conflict there. After this is over, what happens between you and me? I do not know, he admitted. I do not know how to separate my need for justice from my feelings for you. I do not know if I can let go of the past enough to have a future. A deadly game plan came together over the next week. Dominic had been gathering evidence against Natalie's father for years, but he needed something concrete enough to guarantee prosecution. The answer came from an unexpected source. Alina, the housekeeper, used to work for your father. Alina confessed to Natalie one afternoon as they sat in the garden. 20 years ago, before he became who he is now, I saw things, heard things. I have kept records because I always knew someday someone would need them. Those records, combined with Dominic's evidence and testimony from other families her father had destroyed, would be enough. But they needed one more piece, a confession. They needed her father to admit his crimes on record. He will never do it, Natalie said as they reviewed the plan for the 10th time. My father is too smart, too careful. He will if he thinks he has one, Dominic replied. If he thinks he has beaten me, gotten rid of you, and secured his empire, his ego will not be able to resist gloating. The trap was set. Dominic sent word through intermediaries that he was willing to negotiate, that he would release the evidence he had in exchange for a substantial payment, that Natalie was becoming more trouble than she was worth. Every word was calculated to appeal to her. Father's arrogance and greed, the meeting was scheduled for neutral ground, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Dominic insisted Natalie stay at the mansion where it was safe, but she refused. He is my father. This is my fight too. I am coming. Natalie, if something goes wrong, if he brought his own men, it could turn violent. I cannot risk you getting hurt. She stepped close to him, placing her hand over his heart. And I cannot sit here safe while you face him alone. We are in this together, Dominic. The danger, the pain, and whatever comes after. The final confrontation, the warehouse was cold and empty, their footsteps echoing off concrete walls as Natalie and Dominic entered. Her father was already there, flanked by 4 men who were clearly bodyguards. When he saw Natalie, something flickered across his face. Surprise, concern, but it was gone so quickly she might have imagined it. You look well, considering. His voice was the same one she had heard her whole life, cool and measured. No thanks to you, father. Is that what he has told you? That I want you harmed? I have been searching for you, desperate to get you back safely. Stop lying. Natalie's voice was stronger than she felt. I have heard the recordings. I know about the men you hired. I know you would rather see me dead than let me become evidence against you. Her father's expression hardened. Watch your tone. You are speaking to your father. I'm speaking to a murderer. A man who destroyed families for profit. A man who caused the deaths of innocent people and slept well at night afterward. Careful, little girl. You do not know what you are talking about. She knows exactly what she is talking about, Dominic said, stepping forward. And soon, everyone will know. Unless you are willing to confess your crimes, return what you stole, and face justice. Natalie's father laughed, the sound cold and cruel. You think I will confess because you ask nicely? You think I built an empire by rolling over when threatened? I think you will confess because every word you have spoken since entering this warehouse has been recorded, Dominic replied calmly. And because federal agents are listening to this conversation right now, the color drained from her father's face. You are bluffing.